How does law school work? Hi, everyone. My name is Ariana. I wear a lot of different hats, right? I help students prepare for law school by preparing their personal statement, their LSAT, coming up with study schedules, studying all of those things. I tutor students for the LSAT, but I also help a lot of current law students. Last fall, I started working with current law students, and essentially what I did was I built out study schedules for them. We problem solved, we worked on outlining, we did all of these things, and I realized, okay, I'm spending a lot of one-on-one time with students. Let me create some sort of a course for you all to be able to go through at your own pace, but also for you to actively participate, ask questions, all of those things. This will be a 6 session course. We will basically go through things you guys want to talk about. This is not for me, this is for you all. This is a free resource, and my goal with this is to basically make law school less scary, make law school more transparent. I'm a first generation attorney. I had no idea what the hell was going on. And I talk a lot about mental health on my page, but going into law school, no one I knew was an attorney, no one I was friends with was an attorney, no one I was friends with was going to law school. I moved from the state that I had grown up in to Chicago to attend law school. I was isolated, alone. I felt confused. I did not know what the hell I was doing. And so my goal with my entire platform is to make law school, the bar exam, pre-law, less intimidating and less scary. But my goal is also to educate, right? To help bring transparency to you all and make your lives less stressful than mine was. Additionally, I think oftentimes, even if you are not a first generation attorney, there's still a lot of questions, right? Things have changed since your parents were in law school. Things have changed since your parents took the bar exam. And I think oftentimes past generations, they really belittle this process, right? They're like, oh, you have it so much easier. You have computers, all of these things. And it's like, yes, but there are still things that are extremely challenging, emotionally draining, frustrating, all of the things about law school. And so, like I said, the goal of this is to make your life less scary, make your life easier and hopefully help all of your mental health. Okay, next slide. Okay, here are a few important things to note. The goal of this is to be helpful. Sorry, I'm going to move my camera a little bit. There we go. The goal of this is to be helpful, not stressful. Okay. So if I start talking about things and you're like, whoa, 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 what the hell? I don't understand. Or if people start asking questions and you don't understand what they're asking, right? Do not get stressed out. This is a really scary process, but I promise you that the further we get into this, the further you get into orientation, the further you get into 1L, the quicker things will become demystified. Also, my goal is to provide resources for you all, but it's also for you to have more access to me. We have a Discord that is linked. Well, I didn't link it here, but it's on the last page. My email is here. My cell phone number is here. I have a work phone. My work phone is not for my real job. It is to talk to you all. All I do is write on this phone is post on social media, and talk to my students, whether it be you guys or whether it be bar examinees, right? So please do not hesitate to text me. That is the best way to reach me. If you have questions or concerns or you're freaking out or you just need something, let me know. My first day of orientation, I showed up to law school and everyone said to me, I remember very vividly, the dean of the law school said, your life is over. Say goodbye to your mother, say goodbye to your friends, say goodbye to your partners, because at the end of the day, right, you are going to change so drastically and you are going to have no free time. Okay, for context, I love talking to my family. I'm very close with my family, right? I also at the time had a boyfriend who I was doing long distance with. He lived in Michigan, I lived in Chicago. I was scared shitless that the relationship wasn't going to work out because of law school, right? Fortunately, and I love to talk about this, right? Everything worked out. We're now engaged. We're getting married in January. And like, I am so happy that I wasn't like, sorry, bye, talk to you later. I have to go focus on law school. You should have a life outside of law school. Someone who I had met like through like a third party told me before I started law school, keep up with the hobbies and habits that make you you, because it's really easy to lose your individuality in law school. And that is the best piece of advice I ever followed, right? I went to hot yoga every single day. I still lifted weights. I still ran. I still ate good food and cooked because I love those things, right? I still went and spent time with my now fiance, then boyfriend. In fact, I spent at least one weekend every single month not studying, not reading, not doing anything because I was spending time with him. I would travel to Michigan, I would go stay with him for the weekend, and I would come back and I would not touch anything related to law school. There will be weekends where you do have to study, right? There will be weekends where you do have to do your readings. But at the end of the day, right, you do get to focus on this idea of like The rest of the world does not fall apart just because you're in law school. And the sooner you recognize that and accept that, the easier law school itself will actually be. Also, thank you for the congratulations on the engagement. We've been engaged for like 2 years. That's another story for another time with the bar exam because that was chaos. Okay. You do not need to know everything today, right? This is an introduction session. We're going to have 5 more of these. You also are going to have orientation. You'll have access to me. I think at the end of the day, we will also probably do more workshops throughout the semester where we come and you guys ask questions, where we workshop out study schedules, where we create outlines, right? This is just meant to make law school less scary rather than to answer every single question, okay? Reach out to me if you have questions, if you have extenuating circumstances, if you have anything that you want to talk about, right? Like I said, my phone number is on the page, my email is on the page. There's also a Discord channel that I think a lot of you are members of, but I'll make sure to circulate that link again. And essentially what that is, right, is I want it to be a group chat where you all can come and rather than compare and have this weird level of competitiveness in general, I want you to be able to come there and ask the stupid questions. Now, no question is stupid, but there will be people that you will go to law school with that will make you feel stupid for having questions that seem simple or basic. But how the hell are you supposed to know the answers to those questions if no one's ever told you? I love this quote from Ruth Bader Ginsburg because I really do think that it's not just about the law, right? It's not just about society, it's about law school and yourself, right? You will change in law school, but not in a scary way, in a good way, right? You will get more perspective. You will have so much. Can you schedule these meetings? Yes, I will give you all a schedule and I will send all the Zoom links out. Sorry, I have a little bit of ADHD, so I get distracted. You will change. Things will change, right? But at the end of the day, you are capable of that. And you will see very quickly that though you change, perhaps, or you evolve in law school, you will still be a version of yourself. You'll just have a better perspective, I think, in how the world works. Okay, this is what we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about how law school actually works. We're going to talk about cold calls, the curve, why 1L matters. We're going to talk about different types of resources that your schools will have accessible to you. We will talk about the basic classes that you will be taking in your first year of law school. And then at the very end, we'll talk about things you can buy. Now, here's the thing. A lot of people are going to push you to buy a lot of shit, right? Because they're going to have affiliate links, all of those things. I have not provided any of that in this PowerPoint because I want you all to know these are things that I recommend. None of it is fucking necessary. Not a single thing in this PowerPoint is necessary as it pertains to purchasing things. However, I cannot tell you how many DMs I've gotten asking me, what do I need to buy for 1L? What do I need to buy for 1L? What do I need to buy for 1L? I've also seen so many TikToks of 1Ls asking, what do I need to buy for 1L, right? That's totally fine. That's a super fair question, but do not by any means feel pressured or like you have to purchase any of the following things. Okay. I want to give that caveat up front. Okay. And the goal of today, and the thing I want you to take away is to feel less alone. Recognize we are all in this together. And no question is a dumb question or a silly question. All questions are just questions that we don't have the answer to, right? And that's super, super fair to be able to ask those questions. Okay. This is not undergrad just with harder reading. There's kind of an entirely different process to law school compared to most of your undergraduate courses. Now, for those of you who were political science majors, right? Or those of you who were international relations majors, or those of you who were English majors, right? You read a lot, you synthesized a lot, you wrote a lot. Now, if you were more of like a hard science major, then you perhaps didn't write as much if you were like a chem, bio, etc. background. But at the end of the day, unlike medical school or other types of graduate degrees, there is not one particular degree that I think really puts you in a substantially better position than other degrees because all of your undergraduate degrees give you strengths and weaknesses in different areas, right? At the end of the day, most of your classes only have one exam, and that is the final exam. That is really scary. I remember going into law school and being like, what the hell? How am I going to do this? Okay. First, couple things. Most law schools most law schools will have your 1L classes. They will be open note, open book, right? Other law school courses, they won't be, and that's okay, right? Because all of your peers within your section will also be closed book, closed note. Let me pause quick and talk about sections. Most law schools will split your entire class up into 3 or 4 sections. A section is a group of people that you will travel around with and take every single 1L course with. So, for example, I was section three. I went around with every single person in like, there were like 80 of us into every single one of my 1L classes. The only class I did not have with them was my extracurricular class, which was an extra class I could take my spring of 1L. The nice thing about that is you do get to know that community, you get to know that group, and that can be really, really positive because you're able to know all of these people then going into the future. The con of that is you are directly competing against people in your section. But I really, one of the biggest takeaways from 1L is be open to making friends. Okay, be open to making friends. I am so extremely fortunate that two of the women that I met on my very first day of law school are now like bridesmaids in my wedding, platonic soulmates, my best friends on the planet. And one of my other really close friends, who is similarly in that group of women, I met her at a beach day before law school even started, right? I have truly met some of my lifelong best friends from law school, and I hope that you all are able to find people like that too. There will be competitive assholes. There will be people who are annoying who ask 6,000 questions and bring hypotheticals from like Timbuktu into class, right? That's okay. That is fine. But that is something that I think that a lot of people don't talk about with law school is that there is a weird level of competitiveness, but you can and will make friends. Okay. Also, the other thing is you're going to get reading assignments from every single class, right? And they're going to tell you to read 60 to 80 pages probably per class per week. And here's the thing. During your first semester of law school, I really do want you to read and understand that information. However, after your first semester, you'll get to the point where you're able to skim, find the shit that you need to know, and ignore the rest, right? And so people get really freaked out about reading in law school. And first semester is really tough because there's a lot to learn. But I promise you, don't use AI off the bat. Don't use Quimby off the bat. Don't use any of these crazy resources. Don't just skim and don't just copy shit from the internet, right? I really implore you to at least read a couple of cases every single week from each class to have a really deep understanding of the law. Because while technology is very quickly changing the legal field, a lot of us are still, in a sense, being held back from using technology to do too much by the court system, and I do not foresee that changing by the time you guys graduate. The legal field is extremely archaic. I still have partners who handwrite all of their notes and make their assistants dictate them into the computer, right? This is a slow evolving profession. And while it's extremely important to understand how to use the tools, it's also extremely important that you understand how to do things without those tools. Um, you are graded against your peers. There is a curve. That is a good thing. So for example, I was a what was I? Oh, I was a pre-med major basically through junior year of college, and every single exam was curved, right? Because we all got D's on everything and they were going to give us all D's, right? It's a good thing to be compared to your peers, right? Because oftentimes if you all bomb an exam, that means you're all going to be shifted up, right? Most people pass almost all of most people pass all of their law school classes. It's just going to depend on whether you get an A, B, or C. And getting a C, not the end of the world. I got a C in torts my very first semester of law school, and everything is fine, right? Everything works out. I'm a practicing attorney. I am licensed. I passed the bar exam, all of those things, right? So don't let those things freak you out. Shit's going to happen. Real life will happen, but I promise you it will be okay.
Hmm.
The other thing is your skills will compound. You'll start to notice that your ability to read and brief and outline will start to get faster the more you are deliberately involved in the material. The more you go to class, the more you read, the more you outline, the more you
Are you?
understand. Oh my God, sorry, I had like feedback from myself. Um, the better off you will be, and consistency will make your life so much better. Use 1L, the beginning of 1L, the first semester of 1L to be a launching pad for the rest of your legal career. Understand how to do things so that we are able to use resources and tools to make your life easier. The first few weeks will feel confusing. You will feel lost. You will feel overwhelmed. But that is what I'm here for. That's how I'm here to support you. That is what this whole entire community is going to be here for. It's to help you move forward, to help you have more confidence, and to help you remember that you are not in this alone. Okay, sorry, I'm going to sneeze, I think. Or not. The other thing is you should figure out what types of systems work for you. So, for example, one of the things I have noticed working with bar examinees, which you guys are not there, you do not need to stress about this, but I do ask that you consider this, right? Is what type of learner are you? Are you a visual learner? Are you a kinesthetic learner? Are you an Do you learn through audio? Consider those things and then make decisions about how you're going to learn the material, how you're going to retain the material. Do you prefer to handwrite things? Do you like to type things? Are you like flowchart type of person? I can give you resources for all of those, but you have to figure out what type of learner you are, and you have to be willing to problem solve and figure out what type of learner you will be in law school. Okay, I'm gonna blow my nose really quick. Hang on. Okay, so the curve is something that scares the shit out of people. But here's the thing. You have one final, there is a curve where only so many people can get A's, and usually the exam is between 3 and 4 hours long. I promise you, it is a lot easier than it sounds. I remember being scared shitless. The other thing is, a lot of your first year classes will actually have participation. What does that mean? That means that basically they'll take attendance, and like 5% of your grade will be based on whether or not you came to class. The other thing that you have to remember is that you can gain a lot of skills to be good at exams. And the other thing to remember too is different exams are going to be easier for different people. I'm terrible at multiple choice. That's the class I got a C in with torts. I got an A in civil procedure. That was straight up an essay final, right? Those things are important to keep in mind as you go through this process, but they're not meant to scare you. It's just to help you be prepared going into the semester. Okay. Um, the cold call. This is the other thing that everyone's freaks the fuck out about. I promise you, it's not like Legally Blonde, right? It's not like these silly, goofy TV shows where like the professor stands up and screams at you. Will you get professors that are assholes? Yes. Will you get professors with archaic perspectives of the law? Yes. Will you get professors who may say offensive things? Unfortunately, yes, right? Those things still exist. Most of your professors want you to learn. Most of them are very kind. Most of them are very thoughtful. And most of them recognize that, like, you don't know what's going on because you shouldn't, right? You're just starting your education within the law. Um, Basically, what I want everyone to do is to prepare a brief. Now, we are going to do an entire class about what a brief is. So just put this in your brain. A brief is essentially a little table that gives you information about what the case is telling you about. So, what is the story about? Okay. Then it's going to tell you the key takeaway, which will be the rule. Then it will tell you the holding. And the holding is why the judges came to the conclusion they came to. Okay. That's an overview of a brief. We will work through a brief tomorrow in class. You will make your own briefs. You will submit them to me. I will give you feedback, the whole thing. The other thing is, if you get cold called and you don't know the answer, that's okay. I want you to explain your reasoning, right? You will be thinking in your head, holy shit, I'm a dumbass. I don't remember anything. No, no, no. You are very smart. You are very capable. You got into law school. You deserve to be in the room. The sooner you accept that, the better off you will do in law school, right? So if someone asks you, what is the holding of this case? You can say something like, well, from my perspective, my understanding is that the judges or the justices wanted us to take away X. However, I also saw or could see an argument that they actually wanted us to take away Y. That's a totally acceptable answer. And sure, you might get some asshole professor who's going to scream at you for that. But guess what? 99% of your professors will not be upset with an answer like that. The goal for them in cold calling you is to one, make sure that you're paying attention, and two, to make sure that you attempted to understand the reading before you came to class. Three, it's not personal and no one's going to remember it, right? The only things that I really remember about 1L or remembered about 1L was like the stupid shit people did, not people forgetting how to answer questions or not knowing the answer to a cold call, right? It was like really embarrassing stuff that they did that was extremely inappropriate, not things where it was like, oh, so and so forgot their cold call answer, right? I don't even remember the cold call answers that I forgot. So at the end of the day, you'll also learn which professors you need to be extremely prepared for and which ones you can be more like, okay, I understand the vibes, but I don't have like a complete 100% clear picture on what's going on. Um, you also will have some professors who will tell you who is on call. What does that mean? These are the students that they might cold call. So, for example, some of my professors would say, okay, you five people, be prepared to get cold called in class. Those professors are very kind, very thoughtful, very demure, very mindful, right? It's not every professor, but it does help make the class a little bit less stressful when you're not on call. If you have no idea what the hell they're talking about, ask them to repeat the question, point to a fact or rule that you do know, and try to build from there, right? Use what you do know from the case. The worst thing you can say is, I don't know, right? You can say, I'm not super sure, or I don't have a clear understanding, or, I tried to understand ABCD. The first 4 weeks of class, also, they're not expecting you to know shit. They're expecting you to say, Professor, I'm really unclear on this, but I think it's supposed to be Y. So, like, It's gonna be okay. I promise you, they won't scream at you. It's going to be fine. And after your first year, honestly, most of your professors probably won't cold call at all, which thank God, hallelujah. Okay. The people around you. All of you should get to know your professors, okay? And there are going to be some professors that are way more helpful than others, right? Go to an office hour, see if you vibe with them. If you don't, that's fine. If you do, wonderful, amazing. You will need letters of recommendation. I think the best thing I did for myself also was create, I talk about this story a lot, but my civil procedure class, guys, I bombed my midterm and I was so upset because I'd been working so hard in that class and there were just a few fundamental things that I had misunderstood. And I remember going to my professor, and I had been to every single one of her office hours. And she was like, Ariana, you're going to figure this out. And this woman spent, I mean, I'm not kidding, guys, hours on Zoom with me, diagramming shit, explaining shit, re explaining shit, answering every single one of my questions. And to this day, civil procedure is my best subject. Um, it was phenomenal. And I love her. And she was so helpful. And it really did impact me, not only as a student, but also now as an educator, as someone who does help law students, because I recognize like that type of care about students can so deeply not only impact them, but also impact yourself. So go catch a vibe, see if you vibe with them, see if it's helpful. If it's not, if it's a waste of time, stop going. Learn your people from career services. Most of you will be assigned a person from career services, just like you were an undergrad. I want you to meet them. I want you to talk to them. I want you to get to know them. At the end of this PowerPoint, there is a free resources slide. That entire slide, one of those Google Drives has my sample cover letter, my sample writing sample, my sample resume. I recommend that you download that and already go ahead and create your resume based off of that template, right? I do review resumes for law students. I review cover letters. I review personal or not personal statements, cover letters, resumes, and writing samples. So those are things we can talk about. You will use whatever your first year legal writing course is. You'll use whatever they have you write as your writing sample. So don't worry about that right now. Meet a 2L, find a 2L, get involved in organizations, find a 2L who had your professor and get their outlines. The best thing you can do for yourself is understand what past generations, I'm going to say, of law students learned or gleaned from those courses. You are taking the professor, not the course. And you will hear this 1,000 fucking times. You'll also see people talk about, like, oh, just use AI to make an outline. Oh, just use this specific supplement to make an outline. That's terrible advice because guess what? Some professors focus on some shit while others don't. I talk about this all the time. My con law professor, this man would get up in front of the entire class and he would say, tell me about Brown versus Board. Open-ended question. If no one said anything, he would move on. And we got our con law final like the day after Roe was overturned, and our entire final exam was about abortion. So we just sent out an email and he was like, hey guys, haha, LOL, apply the law that you learned in class. Like literally what a nightmare, right? But like most professors would never have even attempted to test that, right? Most professors would have attested on things like, I don't even know, other things from con law versus that specific very niche right to privacy, which you'll learn about in con law. But it's one of those things where I think like you learning the professor, you understanding what the professor tests, you learning the professor's style from students who have already taken courses from that professor is one of the best things you can figure out in those first few weeks. Also, get to know your deans and your academic support system, right? Whether you will need accommodations, which I would apply for immediately upon entering the school and making sure that you get all of that documentation sorted away. Whether, there's other academic issues, whether you have concerns about a professor, right? Get to know these people because you can help make substantive change within your law school to make it better for future students the more you get involved with the deans and the academic supports team at your school. First semester grades matter, right? Because they can impact law review. Law review is essentially a journal. You're going to say to me, Ariana, what the hell is a journal? And that's a really good question. Basically, what you do is you write a paper about a very specific area of the law, and then fellow students edit it. And then, depending on how good it is, it might get published. And that's essentially all law review is in journals. There are Most schools have multiple journals. Law review is like the creme de la creme, the golden star, right? I was not on law review. I was on the health law journal, very specific and niche to my law school. But it was still super helpful, and I would recommend, and we can talk more about that later. Grades can also impact competitive 1L positions. What do I mean by that? Basically, big law. Essentially, big law.
find out that everyone hates me, I don't care. Regina, please. Regina, stop.
So we're watching Mean Girls.
Money make a broke bitch mad. I don't complain. I just
Hey Mira, your phone's unmuted. Can you mute it?
You must be taken away again.
I think I can mute people's phones. Can I do that? Mute. Incredible. Okay, continuing on. Also scholarships sometimes are dependent on grades, right? Which we can talk more about that. There are a lot of resources available to help get scholarship and academic honors and all of those things, so we'll talk about that later. It does not determine whether you're going to be a good lawyer, whether you are intelligent, whether you are capable. It does not impact every job, and it does not impact 2L and 3L, right? Most students see a jump between their first year of law school and their second or third year of law school, so do not worry. Okay. There are three families of law that you will talk about in your first year of law school. There's basically private law, which is contracts, torts, and property, public law, which is criminal law and con law, and procedure, which is civil procedure. Okay. So contracts is something enforceable, right? You will learn very basic understanding of this during a couple of our sessions, but essentially it's just saying like, hey, is this agreement between person A and person B enforceable? Can the law enforce the agreement between these two parties? A tort, think of things like battery, think of things like trespass, think of things like excuse me, robbery, stuff like that, right? Some of those things can be civil, some of those things can be criminal, but specifically with torts, we're focusing on criminal. The other thing is think about medical malpractice, think about legal malpractice. All of those things are talked about within torts. For property, right, we're going to talk about landlord tenant, which impacts most of us. We're going to talk about, okay, well, what if someone passes this land down through a will? What's going to happen, right? What if this person passes it down to a few people? What's going to happen? What if multiple people are saying, hey, that's my land? We're going to figure out who gets the land. Then we have criminal law. You all know criminal law. It's what you think of when you think of like any sort of crime related show. Con law, we're talking about separation of powers. It's basically government 101 with like a little bit of free speech, equal protection. Um, Con law is a very important class. It obviously is being impacted by what is happening currently in the world around us. And so it can be a class where things get more political, which can cause some like strife in classes. But I do think it's a really important course. It's really important that you all understand it. And at the bare minimum, all you take away from con law is please, please, please know the three branches of government and what their purpose are. Because I have a lot of students for the bar exam who did not know that. And it's very important that you understand that we have three branches of government in this here country. Civil procedure. What is civil procedure? Civil procedure, like I said, is my favorite class, but it's very abstract at first. Civil procedure is essentially saying, okay, can I, someone who lives in Illinois, sue someone who lives in Minnesota for a car accident that happened in Wyoming? Right? That's what we're trying to figure out. We're saying, okay, can this lawsuit be heard in Illinois? Can this lawsuit be heard in Minnesota? Can this lawsuit be heard in Wyoming and why? Okay, at the end of the day, that's what we're doing. It's very abstract until you get more in the weeds of it, but I promise you that once you get through the first like month of civil procedure, things will start to click. And guess what? If they don't, it's not the end of the world. Okay. Okay. Now, this is the shit I was talking about at the beginning. You don't need any of this stuff. This is stuff I'm recommending. People have been texting and emailing and DMing me, so I want to give this. You don't need any of this shit. Okay? If you want it, if you have the resources, by all means, please. But these are some recommendations, okay? I love my laptop stand. I'm currently using it. It's phenomenal. I love my second monitor. It's phenomenal. I've had it since law school. I love her. She's great. I am someone who has a planner on my iPad because I love my iPad, which I also have recommended here as something that I loved in law school. I also have a physical planner. I don't care which, or use Gmail, use Notion. Like there's lots of free options. There's also lots of options you can spend money on. So it's totally up to you, but that's my 10 cents. Have a highlighter and a color key, right? Say torts is blue, Cipro is pink, contracts is orange, torts is, I think I already said blue, but you understand. And then study aids. Now, the one thing I will say is most study aids actually you can get through your law library. So I would look at the resources the law school has before you purchase a single thing. My personal favorite study aids include Quimby, which I did specifically reach out to them and ask for a discount code. They told me to fuck off. And then examples and explanations, which I do have linked in my Amazon. I absolutely love examples and explanations. I have all of them sitting over here in my bookshelf. But most of your law schools have those. So you can just access them on the law library website. Okay. There are 5 more sessions. We have one tomorrow, we have 2 next week, and we have 2 the following week. Um, Basically the plan. Oh, today we talked about, right? One exam on a curve. I didn't finish editing this PowerPoint clearly, but you understand the gist. Tomorrow, we're going to go through reading a case and briefing a case and basically talking about how that will work. One of our classes, we will be talking about scheduling, how to, balance all of the moving pieces. We have a lot of other things that we will cover, but if there's anything in particular you guys would want me to talk about, I would absolutely love to do that. At the end of this session, we will do a Q&A where I'll say either, hey, we're going to talk about that in another session, or hey, here's my 10 cents on that. We'll do that at the end of every session. All sessions are blocked to be 90 minutes. In reality, I think they're going to be about an hour. This one may be the shortest just because we're really just going through like a very base level introduction. I will be posting all of these videos on YouTube so that way you all can access them and review them and come back to them, share them with friends, all of the things. Um, this last slide here has my email. It has the link to the Discord. It also has my phone number. I actually don't think this is the last slide. This is the last slide. This hyperlink has example outlines. It has every single outline I made in law school for free, available for you to download. For the love of God, use them as a resource, right? It shows you all of the different potential iterations of ways you can make an outline because for every single course, your outlines will look different. And then also here are the templates for cover letters, resumes, and writing samples. Thank you so much for coming to this. For those of you who are live, we'll do the Q&A at the end, but I'm going to finish this recording here. If you guys have any questions or any concerns, please don't hesitate to reach out. I promise you this is a scary process, but you are not in it alone, and let me know if you have any questions. Okay, so those of you who are still here,